Let's talk about the Ujai Breath, a very essential component of breath work because it allows you to breathe in a slow and deep and controlled manner. A normal breath, if you try to breathe deeply when breathing in and out through your nose, will sound like this. And the sound is coming from the nostrils, and it's very difficult to breathe very slowly that way because there's no control. When we, however, slightly compress the back of the throat passage, the trachea, it results in a sighing sound. And the way you can begin to experiment with this is with your mouth open, practicing that you are misting a window or misting your sunglasses in order to clean them and make that sound. And you can make that exact sound using the same compression with your mouth closed. So close your mouth now and try and make the same or similar sound. This is the Ujai breath, and you use that same contraction with the in and the out breath. So try that with the in and out breath now. This is a sound that is very similar to the ocean waves. You hear that rich sighing sound, which could also be compared to the wind in the top of the trees. And just as with a wave, the wave coming in and then the wave receding again have a slightly different sound, and they also have a spontaneous pause, just so is your Ujai breath. Try it again. Let's do 3 Ujai breaths together. And breathing in. And out. Breathing in. Notice the spontaneous pause and out. And continue. And relax. Now you will notice that if you try too hard to use this Ujai technique, you'll make a rasping sound. It might sound like snoring, it might sound like Darth Vader, but you get a kind of forcing sound, whereas the sound that you want is just this gentle sighing sound. And compressing the back of your throat chakra is a bit of a strange thing to think about because you can't see it, you can't really point to it, and it's a technique which is a bit like asking somebody to wiggle their ears or lift their ears up and down. It's something that you can't really explain how you're doing it. You just have to have the intention to do it. And so if you practice on your own, you will get this technique very, very quickly. There is no person on earth who cannot do the Ujai breath, believe me. And if you struggle with it a bit at first, once it suddenly kicks in and you get it, you'll wonder what on earth you were struggling with or making a fuss about, because it's easy peasy lemon squeezy, I assure you. Now, you will use the Ujai breath when you're doing the full yogic breath, which we're going to practice next. You'll use the Ujai breath when you're doing Nadi Shodhana. You'll use the Ujai breath when we're doing Prana Mudra, which is the most powerful technique that we come to on this course. And all of them require a slow, controlled breath. And instead of finding it an effort, you will begin to find it very, very enjoyable, being able to control your breath and breathe very, very slowly, just at will. One of the reasons why slow breathing is so important is because it's a major step towards our awakening consciousness, and I will explain why. This has been proved scientifically that when you breathe at about the rate of 4 in and out breaths, 4 complete cycles per minute, in other words 15 seconds for one cycle of in and out breath or slower, there is a particular chemical reaction in your brain, which is that your pineal gland and your pituitary start to communicate with each other once more. Now, we know that the pineal gland is the gland of awakening. We know that it is related to the third eye, ajna, and that the awakening or activating of the pineal gland is part of what allows us to see, feel, hear, know on a more telepathic, extrasensory level than we were able to before. What happens with small children is that the pineal gland and the pituitary are working in perfect harmony and communicating with each other. And this is why children have some natural abilities that are beyond us as adults, and it's why they are still using their imagination as a gift. When they imagine the stories that you're reading to them at bedtime, they see them in technicolor. They have very active imaginations. And then, depending on the society and depending on the upbringing, there is a point where the logical brain takes over and becomes more important. And somewhere between the age of 4 and 7 in our societies, the pituitary and pineal gland stop communicating with each other. The pituitary becomes the most active one. And this continues through adolescence, where the hormones take over. It's very much the hormonal power gland, the pituitary, and it comes into dominance. And the poor old pineal that was previously the most important and running the show starts to shrink, and most of us heard that the pineal has now shrunk to the size of a pea. Good news, guys, is that practicing breathing slower, conscious breath, and this rate of slower breathing is what brings the pineal gland back into action again. No matter what actual breath technique or pranayama we're using, this slow breathing will have this awakening effect within the pineal gland, so that it plumps up into a beautiful little plum or peach rather than a dried pea. That's exaggerating. It never gets that big. So I hope I've encouraged you to try breathing slower and deeper all the time, and not only when you're doing your pranayama practice. You can practice this while you're doing your walk out in nature, while you're driving your car, at any time whatsoever, and particularly if you're feeling irritated, frustrated, angry, impatient, or any of those emotions that tend to block our energy and move us into a downward spiral in terms of our emotions. Slow breathing will always reverse that trend. That's why we have these expressions like, just take 3 deep breaths. In other words, before you murder that person, take 3 deep breaths and recenter yourself. So try timing yourself if this is something that attracts you. And I did this when I started breath control. My guides told me that I could breathe in and out in 1 minute. In other words, 30 seconds in breath, 30 seconds out breath. And to my amazement, I realized that I could. If you try too hard, you won't succeed in that very slow breath. You have to relax and breathe very slowly. And you can regulate the level of your ujjayi so it can be very loud like this. Or it can be very subtle like this. Here's my in-breath. And my out-breath. So you can practice along with me, or you can practice on your own and see how much you can slow your breath down. And so you're ready for the next lesson. Well done, everyone. Well done to you.